your key information on a simple graphic organizer. So you see, this isn't like a flashy organizer or anything, but what this organizer does is it gives students space to write down the key information about their, is it going down?
It's not calibrated.
Oh, okay, here.
Yeah, you can do it from there.
Oh, it's not
In
maybe.
theory.
But, well, what it says on the bottom here,
You probably guess what's on the bottom.
yeah, the last is like when, and you can choose. I mean, you can modify this however you want. And then there's also a box for significance. Okay, so the students are looking up what's the significance of this event. These boxes are small because we don't want students to just totally pull all the information from the text and write, and rewrite it all here. We don't want that. So this just gives students a place to kind of write some of that key information, get it organized nicely into one spot, and have all that information in one spot. And then what the next step would be to have students write a paragraph, or you don't have to limit it to a paragraph, whatever your students, how much your students can write. But your students are going to write about their event. So whoever, if you're doing Brown versus Board of Education, I tell you where to go to research, I tell you what you're researching, you do research, fill in your organizer, and then write a paragraph. Now, this is another way you can differentiate. If you're working with students who are at a high enough level that they can just write that paragraph on their own based on their organizer, perfect. They fill out their organizer, write their paragraph, do their presentation. Not all of our students are there yet though, so you can create kind of a frame, a paragraph frame for students to fill in. And frames are I encourage you to kind of do it, there's not like one frame that works for every writing assignment because writing assignments will be kind of nuanced depending on what you're asking them to write about. I created this frame, Brown versus Board of Education was significant because, and you're going to tell me why, what happened was, tell me a little bit about it. This occurred in Kansas, in what year, and involved, who were the people involved, and the reason this happened was because whatever, fill in that blank here. So this just gives students some support to be able to write a paragraph, but that frame might not work for every single topic, so be mindful of that and create a frame that kind of fits with whatever you're asking students to write about. Okay, so that's what your paragraph will look like there, and that gives you some of the guide for the paragraphs.
Could I add one thing about frames also?
Yeah,
Also, write the frames closer to your students' writing as opposed to your writing. So, blank was significant because not blank has changed the way that the United States now represents, make it simple because it also allows them to say, oh, I could have wrote this sentence, I could have wrote that paragraph about these pieces. These are words that I also use.
And if you're using a paragraph frame, that's because you're working with your lower level writers. Students who don't need this frame are your higher level writers, so really the frame should be very basic, a thing that students can kind of just plug in and it's in their language. It's a good point. The last point that I want to make on the short research projects is they're designed, you can use them either as an introduction to an activity, you can also use it as an extension. So for example, Jamie's last activity in her gallery walk was about the Eric Holder letter. So you could also do something similar, having students research some of the effects of that letter. So do some type of extension where you're giving students or groups specific topics related that would be kind of more recent effects of that letter. So that's how you could use it as an extension. So for example, again, going to the conversation around changing DC's laws or decriminalizing marijuana nationally or things like that. Maybe you want to choose some of those national or local issues that you could have students write about that are related to your rights and are related to the letter that Eric Holder wrote, that could just be an extension where they're getting some more information for how that enduring issue looks today, what that looks like today. but yet they're doing it on their own and they're sharing it out on their own.